The military has long come under fire for ignoring sexual assaults. Well, this week, the Pentagon's top man, Defense Secretary Leon Panetta, announced a new crackdown. The main changes: accusations will be investigated by senior officers, not just unit commanders. The Pentagon estimates last year alone there were about 19,000 sex assaults. Most were unreported and, of course, unpunished. Our Dr. Sanjay Gupta spoke with several former service women who all shared a sadly similar story. Once they reported an assault, they were drummed out of the military.
Doing the right thing was in 21-year-old Stephanie Schroeder's blood.
I joined shortly after 9/11. I thought it was the right thing to do.
6 months after enlisting in the Marines, she found herself training at a base in Virginia. One Saturday, she decided to blow off steam with some fellow Marines.
We went out to dinner. I got up to go to the restroom, and my attacker followed me and forced his way into the bathroom. I went to pull the door shut, and he grabbed it and flung it back as hard as he could and charged into the bathroom and slammed the door behind him.
Back on base, Schroeder reported what happened to the officer in charge.
I told her, I need to report an assault. And she just looked at me, and then she started laughing and said, "Don't come bitching to me because you had sex and changed your mind."
Schroeder says she took a lie detector test about her assault and passed, but charges were never filed against her attacker. In fact, she was forced to work with him side by side for over a year. Meanwhile, her rank was reduced and her pay was docked. She says, all because of the incident.
If you want to keep your career, you don't say anything. You just bear it. You just deal with it.
But dealing was a struggle. In early 2003, 5 months pregnant, with her now husband in Iraq, Schroeder felt suicidal. She went to see an on-base psychiatrist.
The first time he was very nice. The second time we got into the assault. And then shortly after that, the chain of command said, well, we're starting an administrative discharge against you.
On June 30th, 2003, Schroeder received her discharge papers. The reason given for separation? Personality disorder, a disorder that the textbook for psychiatrists defines as a long-standing pattern of maladaptive behavior, beginning in adolescence or early adulthood.
It makes absolutely no sense medically for people to be diagnosed all of a sudden after being sexually assaulted as an adult in the military to say, no, you've had this all along.
Anu Bhagwati is a former Marine and also executive director of Servicewomen's Action Network. That's a veterans advocacy group.
It's also extremely convenient to slap a false diagnosis on a young woman or man and then just get rid of them.
And that's really at the heart of this. The question is, are these false diagnoses being used as an excuse, essentially, to discharge these soldiers? You know, we had a chance to talk to Defense Secretary Leon Panetta about this specifically. Listen to what he said.
Obviously, our goal here is to try to put in place what we need in order to deal with these cases as we move forward. There are procedures within the Department of Defense that allow these individuals to raise these concerns and determine whether or not they have not been treated fairly. But I think, and I hope that they'll follow those procedures to determine whether or not that has been the case.
And, you know, the Pentagon also said, Michael, that they can file an appeal, which Stephanie Schroeder is doing, a discharge review board, to see if, in fact, there is a case there.
Obviously, a lot of digging to be done, but on the face of it, it would seem very frightening that this would happen. Does it happen a lot, and does it impact their benefits?
I think so. I mean, you know, the numbers, I learned some of these new numbers just over the past several days, but between the years 2001, 2010, for example, 31,000 people were discharged from the military based on a diagnosis of personality disorder. 31,000. Men and women alike, and, you know, lots of different, not all, obviously all involved with sexual assault, as the case was in these 5 women. But what is interesting is that personality disorder itself is usually a chronic diagnosis, something that comes on in adolescence, early adulthood, not, you know, in response to some sort of traumatic event, as was the case here. And they do lose benefits. I mean, for example, the GI Bill, they may no longer be eligible for that. And also, if you have a pre-existing condition, it can be hard to get health benefits from the VA or either other health organizations.
And yeah, that's the hard thing, though, isn't it? I mean, if they can diagnose it when they're wanting wanting to get them out of the military. Why didn't they catch it when they enlisted? That's
a big question. It's one that, obviously the amount of screening that's done psychologically to these soldiers before we put them, on the field. I mean, this is something you've covered a great deal, and I think most would say, even at the highest levels, that it's been inadequate, certainly up until now. In 2008, there was hearings on this very subject, and at that point, they said a psychiatrist at least has to make the diagnosis. But before that, that wasn't even necessarily mandatory, that a doctor trained in this area would in fact confer the diagnosis.